I did it. It's on.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Trying to Be Better with Joel and Steve podcast. We're really glad everybody is here. We have a special guest, and he will be introduced momentarily. But I want to toot my hooter real quick before we start. I actually delivered the mug today to Eduardo.
He did it. He finally did it.
That was the fucking amazing. Christmas
Mike,
mug.
Don't get too excited. It's gonna be
well, right. And so he posted. I took a photo of him, and he posted it. And I have like 2 other messages about a mug. People want mugs now.
Look like, what we've done. Now we actually have to engage our media specialist arm.
We may have to make some merch.
Yep.
I don't know. Is there any other housekeeping? You know, we have an Instagram, Trying to Be Better podcast. Yeah.
Instagram, Trying to Be Better podcast. Email us, please. ttbbpodcast@gmail.com. We love to hear from all y'all.
Yeah. I actually got a Facebook message from a alumni from the institution that I teach at. And I didn't see it until today. I feel so bad, but he was commenting on an episode, maybe 2 or 3 episodes ago, about when I was all balled up about the cool things I get to do.
Right.
And he identified, he's a artist. He's a beatboxer. He's like a graphic designer, visual artist. And
sure,
he really connected. So Tanner, thanks for sending that message. I appreciate you, buddy. So
nice.
That's my housekeeping for tonight.
Beautiful. I don't have anything else. I'm excited to talk to our guest. Joel, do you want to do the intro honors?
Yeah. So this guy was on our first Google Doc of ideas of people to talk to in Lincoln when we were kicking around this idea. Yep. He's doing the touchdown arms right now. He's excited. He was like, well, we got to talk to this guy. He does so many cool things, and he's just a really positive force in the community. And like, he could talk about his record label, his music, with the band he plays with, solo, or with his wife, or his media company, or his dad's music history, or the fact that he's played with Neil Young and Willie Nelson, for crying out loud. So like, dude, we got to talk to this guy. Right. And plus he's just a really awesome guy. So give a big TTBB welcome to Mike Semrad.
Yeah. What up, America?
Yes.
Mike, thank you so much for doing this. I've been really excited about getting to get to know you a little bit.
Yeah.
It's like I've seen you perform a few times. The last time I saw you, you were on a trailer getting driven through my neighborhood.
Bicycle rickshaw.
Yeah, that was that. And I got to tell you, man, like that was the first time really that my kids have danced to live music.
Oh my God. No way.
That's pretty much. I mean, a little bit, but I mean, like just that impromptu thing where like they just started grooving in somebody's driveway.
Right.
That was rad.
Yeah. Oh my God.
And
I'm so honored to have that happen.
It was really cool. And like, I've seen the Bottle Tops, which I really enjoy. I'm kind of I like Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys and that sort of thing. So just to have to know that's why I was excited to have you on here, because I know, like, I'm a Lincoln guy. I've lived here most of my life.
Yes.
And I was gone for a while and I came back, but like, it's so gratifying to live in a community that is regarded by most of the world as like a flyover thing. Right. But to know that, no, actually there's a very vibrant art community here, and you're a really big part of that. So I'm just thrilled to have you on.
Man, thank you. I appreciate being even mentioned in those 2 sentences. That's incredible. I don't even know where. Yeah. I mean, the rickshaw thing was, it was a pedicab company called me after they saw me singing at windows at retirement communities. Oh, yeah. And I wanted to bring music to the old people that were just basically landlocked and probably watching Jeopardy until their eyes fell out. And it's like, let's bring something.
That's so cool.
Yeah. And that was kind of the first step in doing that. And then a pedicab company called me and said, UNL's not even a thing anymore, and the games aren't a thing anymore. What do you think about teaming up? And I said, sweet, let's do it. And next thing I know, I'm going through the streets singing to people, and we took it around to a few more retirement communities, and seeing them come out on the porch and on their little balconies and stuff was like a French film. I mean, it was the most beautiful thing in the world.
Wow.
It was like the very first image of the pandemic, with the guy playing the horn on the porch.
Yeah. It was.
You remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And that was kind of our little version of that, because it was, I mean, Kirsten and I got on our bicycles, rode all the way across town. We're like, told the Erbauers, like, come on, let's Mike's playing on a rickshaw in your neighborhood. Let's figure it out. Because
I remember you there, man. It was so great to see you guys.
Yeah.
You know, and it just took off from there. The Lead Center, for those that don't know, is a huge performing arts facility, and they put on shows year round. And they got a hold of me, and we teamed up with them and started bringing different bands, not just myself.
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't want to hog all the, you know, I wanted it to be diverse, and I wanted it to like take on a life of its own. And so we got other bands involved, and then we tried to put multiple people on the back of these pedicabs that really were built for 4. But because the guy built a PA system on the pedicab,
that was such a cool rig.
That was powered. Yeah, it was powered by one of these cooler company solar powered batteries.
Oh wow!
And it lasted like 48 hours, so you could pretty much do anything you want with it. And then, so then the craziest thing we did, we jammed a 3-piece polka band on the back of that thing.
Oh, I love it.
And they went through the streets of Lincoln and did a neighborhood. And so we kind of broke it up into different neighborhoods, but it was killer, man. It was so much fun. And you know, like seeing it come up my own street with this guy named Eddie Brown singing. He stopped in front of my own house and sang for us. And I finally got to feel what it was like to be like caged away and with no music except our podcasts and our streaming services. You know, I finally got to feel live music from my own porch, and it was like the most beautiful, like cloud splitting thing ever, you know.
That's so cool.
You perform quite a bit, and I perform a little bit, so I'm mostly a consumer / receiver. So for somebody that's usually the one that's producing or playing or entertaining,
right,
that has to be kind of a nice moment for you.
Well, it was incredible. And not only that, to know that I kind of started it, that put a big smile on my face, and not to take credit, but just to feel like what doing does.
No, that's
kind of what your podcast is all about. Yeah.
You get to own that. That's awesome.
Well, and you know, it's about being better, you know, and like kind of like what your podcast is all about. You know, it's like what, you know, I don't want to just sit around and stew about all these like humongous, like epic pandemic, racial tension, disease, dying, all these major things, elections, like these things that we're dealing with. I instead just wanted to do something cool, you know, and just be like a doer.
Yeah.
And you have done.
And to have that come back to you is so cool. Like, you know, like this idea that you threw out there in the world and it came back to you.
Crazy. That's wild. The best letter you could ever send, it comes back, you know.
Well, I'm totally gonna do the thing where I'm shifting gears, but I am curious because I kind of ran around with you back in the day at UNL.
Totally
here and there.
You were one of my favorite people. Because you were nice to me. I'll never forget. I'll never forget your kindness. I will never in a million years forget your kindness, because I was friends with your older brother.
Yeah.
And he was in my class, and you were in 2 grades younger, I think.
Yep.
Maybe 3.
Yeah.
I can't remember, but you were younger.
Yeah.
And I'll never forget meeting you, because like I was like, oh, no way. Like, you're an Egger. That's awesome, man. I know your older brother. That's so crazy. I want to welcome to the university. And you were just like super rad.
Yeah.
You had a great spirit. And I was like, that dude is cool, man.
That's crazy to hear, Mike, because I was kind of in my own way at the time. Like I was kind of screwing my life. I was on my way to screwing my life up. So you think about it that way at that time. But I mean, I eventually pulled my head out of my ass. But it's cool to hear that was the vibe that I gave off when I was kind of totally locked in my head.
I don't know why you would have given that up, but you did.
You had a band at the time. Like, what's your history with being a musician? Like what was the band at the time? Was that?
Well, let me take it back before that, and you'll understand. You'll understand. So I was born into an extremely musical family. My father was in one of the very first rock and roll bands in Nebraska in 1964, called the Nomads, and they turned into George Harrison B and the Bumbles, and then those fellas morphed into a band called the Smoke Ring. And Smoke Ring, by the time they got to be the Smoke Ring, they were kind of pretty nationally known. They had a hit song and were on American Bandstand in 1968.
Oh, cool.
And yeah, the history is amazing there. But from there, if you looked at my mom's side of the family, incredible country music history. Her older brother toured with Johnny Cash in 1958.
Wow.
And was on the very first, I guess, version, you could say, of the Grand Ole Opry. Oh, wow. And so that was the first traveling version of the Grand Ole Opry. And they rolled through Omaha, and he got the balls to, as a local singer, walk up to Johnny Cash and the crew and say, "Hey, I'm a local guy. Is there any chance that I can sing one song?" And that's like me, literally like me finding out Guns N' Roses is playing at the Pinnacle Bank Arena and saying, I'm going not only to the show, but I'm going to walk up to them before the show and say that I'm a singer. That's exactly like that.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just, and somehow, some way he kept bugging people that night, and they let him sing one song. And not only did he sing one song, he sang 5 songs. He had 4 standing ovations.
Wow.
And afterwards, Johnny Cash and June Carter took him for a steak and a bottle of wine and said, "We want to take you on the road with us. We think you're special."
That's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. And they did. They took him on the road, and he toured with, it was Johnny Cash, George Jones, Minnie Pearl, Little Jimmy Dickens, Uncle Jones, Grandpa Jones, all of them, all the big, huge names, Minnie Pearl. I mean, the Howdy, you know, all the old country singers. And so he had an incredible career, and he was one of the only guys I've ever met in my whole life that's had probably 3 or 4 shots at the Golden Ring. You know how like if you get one, you're like a lucky dude. He had like 3. And when I say that, I mean that he was offered a record deal and like a shot at the big time.
Yeah.
And because he was so in love with his wife and he was so engulfed into having a family, he just couldn't wrap his mind around turning into a musician, like a traveling. Because if you think about it, George Jones was like the quintessential touring musician. He was a mess. He was an absolute mess.
Right.
Like famously.
Right.
Yes. And
right.
Like pills, drinking, you name it. Like that, like he was riding on the bus with these guys for about a year. And what happened was they ended up in Council Bluffs on the tour. And I've heard many different stories of this. And I'll tell you, just because this is kind of a vital point of why he didn't succeed. He ended up having a mental breakdown. And he swore up and down that he didn't do pills. But one night, he would party pretty hard with these guys, you know, and one night George Jones had a broken arm, and him and Little Jimmy Dickens were in the same hotel room. And it just so happens there was a Murphy bed that folded down from the wall.
Right.
And George Jones was just passed out, wasted, drunk on this Murphy bed. And my uncle told the story like this, like him and I were having a whiskey, and he told me this story. And he said, well, Little Jimmy Dickens broke out a bottle of White Lightning, and we started sipping on that. And lo and behold, Jimmy Dickens turned to me and he said, "Watch this, Dick." His name was Dick Allison. And he said, "Watch this, Dick." And he threw that Murphy bed up in the wall with George in it. And he ended up breaking his leg. So he had a broken leg and a broken arm at the same time on tour. And so, yeah. And so the story, it's an incredible, but these stories would pop out of him all the time when we started sipping on whiskey or just hanging out. But then the story went, and he kind of gave me his version and swore up and down it wasn't pills and booze. But from others, I heard that he came out on stage and just kind of froze. And then they found him in his dressing room kind of, you know, and he had a nervous breakdown, which kind of ended his career for a while. But if you look at the history of, like, you know, my dad's rock and roll 10 years later, and then as I was growing up, my uncles and my father were like my heroes playing music, you know, they became these incredible heroes to me. And so as a kid, I was like, how can I get attention too? You know, singing must be it, because everybody's watching them when they do it.
Right.
You know, and so I said,
well, kind of sounds like me in the theater. I need to, like, I don't know if I want to analyze that all the way down the drain, but my parents were a community theater, I'm like, well, I guess if I'm going to get everybody's attention, I better get on stage.
You better get on stage, man. People like watching people on stage.
Right.
And so my stage was a 3x3 foot piece of linoleum in front of my grandma's front door.
Nice.
And that became my first stage. And I started singing songs with my uncle. I sang, Elvira and some Eddie Rabbit.
Love a Rainy Night.
Love a Rainy Night was one of the big hits I sang. And I have a tape of it, me singing the Dukes of Hazzard theme song.
Yes.
And there's a part in that song where they say, your mama can dance, something, and see their face on TV. The line was something like that. I could look it up, but my version as a kid was what I heard and what I sang was, your mama can dance. She stuck a stick in her pants and threw her face in a tree. And so it's just, but I have the tape and it's on there. It's beautiful.
So great.
But I was 4 years old and I did that. And so my aunt and my grandmother decided that I was a singer. I was a performer. And so they put me on truck beds and state fairs. And I toured all over Nebraska when I was 4 years. Yeah, 4 years old.
Oh, wow.
As a little tiny kid. And I opened up for like Miss Nebraska and like an Elvis impersonator, and like people.
So you've
juggling.
been performing since you were a toddler, basically.
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Amazing.
And so I started, and then all of a sudden I was living in Norfolk at the time. And as you all know, Norfolk, Johnny Carson's from Norfolk.
Right. Mm-hmm.
So my grandmother was friends with him. And so he called and wanted me to come to LA to be on the Johnny Carson show. And at the time I was just starting school and I was in this like precipice, like this crossroads, so to speak, of like, okay, if we're really going to make him into, a childhood star, like Drew Barrymore or, one of these kids, then we're going to do it now. And my parents decided that school was more important and life in Nebraska was more rooted. And so we ended up staying, which is fine. But I still,
I didn't know that, Mike. That's crazy.
Yeah, totally.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
We never ended up going to LA to be on the Carson show, which, I still love Johnny Carson to this day.
Well, yeah.
But, I ended up, then the 80s happened and I just threw myself into like Michael Jackson and breakdancing.
Yes.
And I started a group called Rap Attack with my cousin.
Are you kidding me?
No.
That's amazing.
No. RAP-A
yes.
-TAK. Rap Attack.
Rap Attack. That's perfect. I had a little rap group with my stepbrother called J&J Raps. His name was Johnny. And
J&J Raps. That's badass.
But it wasn't badass because because my parents were like, pastors. So we had to rap about Jesus. And there's a tape. There's a tape somewhere.
Oh my God. I'd love that.
And I hope that never surfaces. And
I hope it does.
I hope it does.
I want to hear this tape so bad.
Do you still have the parachute pants
on his legs, robe hanging down? Can you beg for the bread and the wine? Man, let's do it. Let's do it. Let's
I want to. Can you still break dance? Is what I want to know.
So here's the thing. You gotta remember, like Breakin' 1 had just come out.
Okay.
This was pre-Breakin' 2 Electric Boogaloo, right?
Boogaloo.
So I was the kid on the street that just really went for it. Like I had a piece of cardboard. I had my own outfit. I had my own high top Nikes, that tucked in, that rolled up, like it was a deal. And somebody had the idea of bringing a Michael Jackson impersonator to Gateway Mall in like 1987. And I went and I, in the back of my mind, I was like, this dude is mine. Like I'm going to take, and I still remember it. I to this day, I go, there's hundreds of people here and he's not that good. And I was like, this is me.
Did he have like a sequined glove?
Oh, he looked just like him, dude.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's
just
amazing.
like him. But his dancing was maybe 80% there.
So
I straight up wormed my way to the front and I raised my hand and I said, dude, you got to get me up on stage. And he goes, oh, little man. And I was really short. I still am. I'm a shorter guy.
Yeah.
Little man wants to show us his moves. He gets me on stage and I have photographs of this.
Oh, please.
And he kept me on stage for the rest of the show. And it was like half of the show. And afterwards we kind of became friends, and like it became this, like, he wanted me to go with him kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I don't, like, he must have been thinking like, oh my God, who is this kid? And so that's how into it I was.
You were okay. Because when you say like, oh, the 80s came along and, you know, breakdancing, and I kind of was like, I would put on my penny loafers and try to do Michael Jackson stuff in my kitchen.
Yeah.
I did not have the stones to say, hey, Michael Jackson impersonator, I know.
Right. Out. It's stupid. And I still think about it now, just going, well, that was the biggest thing ever. Everybody wanted to do the worm. Everybody backspin. Yes. Everybody kind of, you know, could do the, you know, moonwalk or whatever. But for me, it was like this, like I made money doing it. Like half of my show was country music. The first half, I would come out in a cowboy hat and a vest, and I'd sing Eddie Rabbit and Kenny Rogers and whatever else. And then I'd take a break. And then all of a sudden I would press play and like CNC Music Factory would pop on, and I'd come out and just like melt faces at the you know, the Ord County Fair or whatever.
Dude, that's what I was going to ask, is where did you do this?
Yeah, where did you do this?
Yeah, I mean, it was all over. It was weird places. County
how
fairs.
old were you? Were you like late teens?
No, I never did it that late because it kind of got cheesy. By the time I got 13 or 14, it got really weird.
So your like parents would drive you out, or what did that look like? What were the logistics of doing that? Your folks?
Yeah, mostly my aunt. My aunt would like drive me around in this huge red Cadillac convertible that she had.
Perfect.
And yeah, of course. Like, how else are you going to arrive in, you know, with a zipper jacket and a headband, you know? And
you could fit the whole stage in the trunk of one of those things. So
for sure. And I had a whole thing, man. I had a boombox. I had the taped show, and I'd come out. I have live video, dude. This is crazy. It was the I'm gonna get this wrong. It was the Czech Festival.
Wilbur.
In Wilbur. That's it.
Nice.
In Wilbur, Nebraska. And these people are serious about this stuff.
Oh, like
they crown like a Czech queen, and it's like a legit thing. Somehow I weaseled my way onto the roster, and I come out and I do Billie Jean. I do one song. I do the whole thing exactly the way it was done on the Grammys. And I have video of like the front row of these older Czechs, like these women watching me like crotch grab and spin around. And it is beyond insane.
Oh
yeah.
You have to give whatever you have, send it to me after we're done, because I'm going to blow this up on the Instagram.
Dude.
I'm like seriously really curious. Like how did you book those gigs?
Yeah.
Like well, I don't really,
what that
I didn't know, you know,
did you just not know any better and just start calling people, or what?
It's a good question. Unfortunately, my aunt's no longer with us, and I don't know. I have a feeling that that particular one, my mom had a connection in Alliance and knew somebody that was going to be there.
Sure.
But the other ones, I think she just straight up called or sent a letter and said, "We've got this 7-year-old kid that's just electrifying, and he does half country, half Michael Jackson. You're going to love it." Right. And what person in 1987 is going to
turn that down?
Right.
He does the Oak Ridge Boys and then turns right around and does Beatles.
Yeah. Right. Turns right around. Yeah, exactly. I was like, who is this?
That's a slam dunk.
Yeah. I've got pictures of like Miss Nebraska and just like cuddling up with these gorgeous ladies. And
that's
like,
amazing.
It was fantastic. It was like, you know, but I always think about like, if I continued to do it that way, I probably would have turned out like one of these childhood stars. I always wonder about that. Like, you know,
like
but
if you would have gone to the Carson show,
and lived a life in LA as like a childhood actor or something like that. Yeah.
But like, I don't know what that's like. You both have kids, and like, if you had your kids are finding out who they are and they're interested in stuff. And you'd like, once they find that thing they love to do, how do you deny your kid? Like,
right.
You know, I love to perform, but I always had some weird like stage fright stuff too. It doesn't sound like you had any of that, or you don't have any of that now for sure.
Well, it was like, I remember going out on stage and just being like, this is where I belong. Like that was in my mind. I when I got off stage, I felt more uncomfortable because people started asking me questions about stuff. And then I was just like, well, I don't know, but if you watch my show, you'll know.
Yeah.
You know, and it was just kind of a weird.
That's actually a really great answer to that question.
Yeah.
Right.
Like if you watch my show, you'll see everything you need to know.
Yeah. That's all you need to know, man.
I don't want to talk. I want to rock.
I want to moonwalk.
I want to moonwalk.
Well, that's kind of why I was asking you that, Joel or Mike, because Joel, you kind of brought it up as like my kids are, you know, starting to get preteen and they're talented and artistic. And we're trying to navigate this insane landscape of all of the opportunities that are available to somebody that wants to self-publish, like two loudmouth guys that start a podcast, right? You know,
guilty as charged,
right?
Yeah.
You know,
but
because like they're wanting to like do a YouTube channel and do whatever and
TikTok videos.
Yeah. And we're like,
it's it's now everybody's the star now. I mean, it's like, you know, and that's kind of cool because like I feel like people like that feeling of like being in front of the camera, you know, or in the spotlight.
Sure.
That's a feeling some people really, it scares them, but for a lot of folks that's a great, and now it's way more accessible with, like you mentioned, YouTube and TikTok and all this stuff. It's I mean, I've got my own studio in my house. I can record records, you know, it's like, wow, that's insane.
Yeah.
So it's way more accessible, but so like by the time I got to be a teenager, that sort of that faded away. The girls came, you know, I was okay. Girls are awesome.
Sure.
And then I fell in love with basketball and I started playing basketball and ended up, you know, challenging myself as a 5'5" senior to start varsity. And I totally did. And like that, all that stuff is just like, you know, artillery for how I live my life now. It's like, if somebody says you can't do something, you know, that's the greatest for me. You know, it's like, well, yeah, you totally can, man. For sure.
So did you go? I'm curious. So like when girls started to enter the picture, were you like, well, they like rock and roll, and that's when I'm going to start playing rock and roll? Or
you know, no, actually, the rock and roll was a thing for me, but way later. Like not until I got into college was that a thing. Girls that I mean, I was still moving around like dances. I was the kid that kind of took the center stage and people surrounded him and did stupid stuff for a while. And girls just love that. In my world, they did. You know,
I think girls just love guys that are confident to go out and do that.
I think you're right. Yeah,
confidence is attractive.
Sure. Right. And then still silly enough to like break out the, you know, do these weird dance moves, you know, in front of their classmates, you know, like, who is this guy? Like, what the hell is that?
Somebody that's willing to sort of put themselves out there and doesn't give a shit is it's really infectious to be around, whether they're attracted to. It's just like somebody that's just willing to, and it sounds like that's never been a problem for you.
No, it hasn't. And I'm not bragging, but I always danced like nobody was watching, you know, and I was always in my own world with that. And then, and later in life, like when I 15, 16, it just never really fell off. It just became kind of dorky, to do that. Yeah. And so then I discovered theater, and that was kind of the same thing. It was like, wow, we're like in front of people still. I got cast in the role in this show called The Nerd. And it's a great high school play done by a lot of high schools. And I was cast in that. And I discovered how I could make people laugh. And that was just another element to being a performer. It was like, you have the control now to not only control your own show, but like to make somebody feel something. And that was a huge revelation for me.
That you never look back after that. There's nothing like that.
No, you know. No. There wasn't. And regardless of the fact that I nearly died on stage from eating a hard-boiled egg.
Wait. Stop right there.
Seriously.
What's that story?
So,
please?
Okay. So, and I still want to find out who was responsible for this, but there's a scene in the show where the nerd has to like mow down like 10 hard-boiled eggs. And I hate like hard boiled eggs, first of all. I mean, I can eat them now for like holidays and stuff, but like then I just couldn't stand it. Somebody accidentally put the tray of hard boiled eggs in the freezer instead of the fridge.
Oh no.
And
so they're like pool balls.
They were like semi-hard. Yeah, they were like halfway frozen.
Okay.
And so I'm just like downing them, jamming it in my talk hole, and I'm just like, holy God, I'm not going to be able to swallow this brick of madness, God. Right? Yeah. And so I tried and literally I'm in character as the nerd, but here I am, like literally like almost dying, trying to let my co-part know I'm actually choking on stage.
Yeah,
like
doing the choking, like
funny.
And I know
breathe right now.
Yeah, and I know the person must have thought like, well, that wasn't in the blocking. That wasn't
right.
This is not part of the show. What are
Mike's
you doing?
Going rogue, man.
Yeah, Mike's just being crazy again. But I literally somehow ended up getting past that scene, and I still don't know. And I walked off the stage and I just started like screaming.
Oh yeah.
I was like, who did that? Like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Like it was just bizarro, but that was a high school production of The Nerd for you. Yeah. but that was all part of like the whole thing, you know. And I really kind of I didn't have like a one group of friends. I was like the everyman, you know.
Yeah. The chameleon.
That kind of like if the Hessians came up and wanted to talk about metal music, I could do that because I knew about that. My older brother loved those bands, Metallica and all those great bands. Or if I, you know, if the jocks came up, I could talk sports and be that guy for a while. Or if the theater people wanted to talk Shakespeare and that kind of thing, I knew that kind of thing.
Right.
So I just fit in everywhere. And I was kind of like, you know, and it also, a big part of that was that we trained racehorses as when I was in high school. And so I bounced around to a few different high schools. And so I was able to make friends very quickly because of that. So
yeah, you gotta learn how to adapt. I mean, I moved a few times. You kind of got to learn how to who to fit in with, who are the people that are doing fun stuff, and you know, like, and
it was
how to survive. Really.
Yeah, for sure. And it was a quick adaptation. When you're 15, 16, those emotions in high school are all about your friends and what group you're in. They're so segregated. And somehow I was able to bounce around and really navigate that very well, thankfully. And I think even now that's kind of why I'm a social butterfly. And I kind of, you know, I love, you know, meeting and talking to different people. And, and that really played over into my older years for sure.
Yeah, dude. Yeah. So, I mean, I remember working on a show with you, I think with Mary. Didn't she direct that?
She did
that show of what was that, Sleeping Beauty or something?
It was called Briar Rose.
Yes. And I was so in my cups that I quit that show.
Oh,
and
crazy.
Where was
that?
This?
Yeah, and I quit that show. I had to make amends to her, and now, you know, now we work together. It's so crazy.
Sure. I know it's like these different times in your lives, man. It's like, you know, but when I got out of high school, like I joined my first year of college, I didn't even know if I wanted to do theater. I was just kind of like, oh, well, these people are on stage. They seem cool.
Right.
And then I met a guy that he's like, hey, I heard you're a percussionist. And I was like, yes, I played drums and never owned a drum set. I always would drum on my desk in high school and stuff. And he's like, well, we're starting a punk band and we need a drummer. And I go, dude, I don't know what punk music is. But I said that kind of half-assed, being like, I kind of know what metal music is. I know what hard music is, but I wasn't quite totally sure what punk meant, you know?
Yeah.
And these dudes, they took me under their wing, Luke Rustmeyer. I don't know if you remember Luke.
I don't know. I don't remember.
Okay. Yeah. He was a fellow that studied at the university for a while, but he was like totally out of place, like total greaser with his hair slicked back, like wore white cigarettes rolled up in his t-shirt.
Yes.
You know, I mean, just the guy that wanted to be in acting school just to be a movie star.
Right.
You knew that that's what he wanted.
Right.
And so he's like, yeah, I'm a singer in a punk band, and our drummer quit, and he's going to college and wherever, and we need a drummer. And so I auditioned, and at the time I was actually studying to go to New York to be a part of Stomp. which the percussion company Stomp. Yeah.
I remember this.
Yeah. And so I went out to New York on a cattle call audition. There was like 7,000 that auditioned.
Yeah.
And I got down to the last 14 people. And they offered me the job to tour Asia. And it would have been incredible. It was like $1,400 a week.
Mm-hmm.
And no, I'm sorry, not $1,400. It was $4,000 a week. And it was a shitload of money. It was a lot of money. And I was like, wow, we could do this. And then in my final audition, in the back of my mind, I kept thinking like, okay, I just met a girlfriend. I had this great girlfriend who's now my wife. And I've got this punk band that offered me a gig. I'm in school, and here again, my earlier life plays again. It's like everything that draws you back to home kind of haunts you.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so I ended up, not getting cast, but they took 7 out of the last 14 and I just missed it. But, and I'm so thankful now. I think I would have destroyed my body. And
that kind of road life is no joke. I mean, the money is great, but the touring is hardcore, especially for a show like that.
It was a boatload of just pressing on your body and beating on your own body and legs and but it was so cool, the experience, because I was a huge Luke Cresswell. He was like kind of an idol of mine. He started Stomp in the streets of England, and he was like sitting right in front of me during my final audition. So that was like just crazy,
Yeah.
But
well, yeah, Kirsten and I were talking about just like those forks in the road like that, where if you have a sense of like who you are, where you're at, whether that's spiritually or not, but like that those choices are. There's like I'm going to talk about the multiverse with Mike Semrad, but it's like all of those opportunities could have gone all those different ways, and we're on this trip for there's a reason why we're in this particular configuration of events.
You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, and it's the choice of what feels the best, right?
Yeah.
It's like what's step 2 with this choice that we're about to. It's like a choose your own adventure. Life is a choose your own adventure book.
For sure.
It really is. And like for me, I was just blessed with making the right decisions because I guarantee, just like you fellows, you easily could have taken the wrong decision or made the wrong decision.
Have done that a couple times, actually.
Yeah, for sure. And I have too, but not so drastically that it just threw me off the course.
The universe, whatever, sort of pulls you back and gives you plenty of opportunity to come back to, the right order of things, maybe.
For sure.
And Mike, you're obviously a person that is looking for opportunity. Rather, you see opportunity as opposed to just seeing obstacles. And if there is an obstacle, then that's an opportunity somehow.
You're 100% right. That's amazing you say that, because that's absolutely correct. And I've always, no matter what, I've always taken what comes to me as a tool. But and just kind of like, okay, well, now I have that. Like, for example, like running a marketing company now, I never in a million years thought I would do that. But I take these.
That's Red Rebel Media. Is that
Red
correct?
Rebel Media? Yeah, Red Rebel Media, and it's a tool. It's a toolbox for me. I use the stuff that I own to do other stuff. Like I can help a nonprofit organization with a live stream, and then I turn around and I create music with that same equipment, and it's like, video cameras I use for other projects that are super fun and kick-ass. And most of the stuff I do is fun and kick-ass anyway.
Yeah, it is.
But it's just, it's like, I just use it. And you're totally right. You're totally right. Like really whatever comes down that road, it's like, use it for sure.
So it's just kind of like with the punk band. It's like, hey, you want to play drums in a punk band? You're like, yeah, of course. Like,
I think so.
Of course I do.
Yeah. I looked at him and I said, I think I do. And then
was that Rocket FM?
So it started out as a band called Hoot Nanny.
Oh, Hoot Nanny. Yep.
Yeah. And it was a straight up like hardcore 2/4 to the ground punk band, like like really crushing punk straight up, straight ahead. And I could do that shit. I mean, that's like playing polka music just faster.
Right. It is. That's actually
polka is punk. Punk is polka.
It's so true. Or even country music. Don't check, don't check, don't check, don't check, don't check. I mean, the faster you make it, it turns into punk rock.
True. That's awesome.
And
throw some distortion on it.
Yeah. And I was already into country music and bluegrass from my uncles, and I love that. And so the Appalachian Mountains became punk rock to me. That was like totally it. And all you did was distort your guitars, and then you just screamed a little harder, and it became punk rock. And it was like, dude, awesome.
I gotta tell you, I recently was kind of loaned an accordion. I've never had one before, but I play a little piano, and I love the accordion.
Yeah.
I if I had endless amounts of time, that's all I would do was just master that thing, because it's just this bizarre anachronism.
Yeah.
Of like, we have electronic keyboards and a piano and some guitars, but this accordion where it's like the movement and the wind and the squeezing and the reeds and the chords and it's in stereo, and it's just I just like all this talk about polka. I'm like, fuck yeah, I've got an accordion, bitch.
Oh man, do it, man. And just pray that none of those bevels go. You know, that none of those pop or break. Because
I'm being real gentle with it, because it's not mine. It's kind of on loan, and so I'm being real gentle with it, because that's the other thing about it. It's a very kind of delicate thing.
It is, it is.
So anyway, I digress.
And nobody fixes them.
Well, that's the other thing, is I can't find much information on it. I mean, there's some YouTube videos, but it's
there's like 3 people in the whole world that fix them.
I believe that.
It's crazy. Yeah,
really.
Yeah.
So anyway, it just feels putting it on and strapping it on, it makes me feel like, okay, it's tying back to something that doesn't really exist anymore, which is kind of a shame.
And that sound, when you hear it, you kind of, it just takes me back. Like, I was, my family going 4 generations back was from Abbey, Nebraska, which is like 15-20 miles outside of Wahoo.
Okay.
And they're super Czech family, And my father and I went and walked around some graveyards in Abbey and found all of our relatives, and he gave me the lowdown, because he's a total historian buff. And we stopped at the local bakery there in Abbey and had some incredible kolaches and they sell Budweiser from Czech. It's the Budweiser, Czechoslovakian Budweiser. And so we got 2 beers for the road, and we illegally drove down the road drinking beers and ate some kolaches. But it's a
great day.
Oh man, great day, I tell you. So, to answer your question, Hootenanny turned into M80, and then M80 turned into Rocket FM.
Okay.
Yeah. And by the time we got into Rocket FM, we were pretty artsy. We got a little more mathy with the beats.
Yeah.
They kind of, turned to a little more Fugazi-ish.
Yeah. Okay.
And then from there I moved to Chicago, and that took me to Chicago. And unfortunately, my band sort of didn't come with me. And the idea was that they would eventually, but they did not. They were 2 graphic designers that ended up staying here in Nebraska. And I don't blame them. Them. Chicago was a pretty interesting place. It was a big cultural shock for me.
Yeah.
And it took me about a year to acclimate to Chicago to really fall into the mode of it.
Yeah. And, I mean, it takes a year when you move anywhere, especially I think when you come from the Midwest. Like when I lived in LA, I don't think I got my sea legs until I was there a year,
Oh man. Yeah. LA is even crazier, I think. Yeah. Just with the driving and everything. And the subway system was new, and everything was super new. But I was really lucky, like early on. I had some super shitty jobs. My first job, I worked for the mob, literally. It was a place called the Chicago Center for Performing Arts, and and it was totally ran by an Italian family whose father was the police chief, and I was a bartender, and I occasionally would find stacks of $100 bills with CTA wrapped around them, and and I'd say, Tony, what's this? I'll take that. I'm sorry, it shouldn't be in there.
Yeah, that should be in an envelope.
Yeah, and Richard Dreyfuss would make an appearance once in a while.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and Frankie Avalon was the uncle of Tony. that owned it. So he'd come in and hey, Frankie, how you doing?
Uh-huh.
So yeah, and then my second job, I got out of that job, and my second job was working for a music shop that sold drugs out the back door. So that was like,
nice.
so yeah, so it was a kind of a welcome to the city type deal.
Yeah. And that's when you didn't, when you moved there, you guys didn't have your kiddos yet, have you?
No.
Okay.
We didn't have any kids. No. And we ended up having kids there, like maybe 7 years into living there. But, and then luckily, like I'm blessed because I luckily fell into a job at the Old Town School of Folk Music.
Oh, wow.
And now the Old Town School of Folk Music is like an institution in Chicago. It's been around since 1942, I believe. And it was started by a guy named Win Strachey in his living room. And then it went to a larger venue, and then it ended up at the old Chicago Library on the north side. And they were originally on Armitage, and it was like John Prine would play there, and Steve Goodman would play there, and Joan Baez. Wow. And I've sold a guitar to Arlo Guthrie, and like crazy shit, so all these people would come into the guitar shop. I started in the guitar shop, and then I ended up teaching guitar and comic book illustration to the kids, and that became my job. But it was just like insane. People would come in, and like Arlo came in and was like, "Man, this guitar is awesome." Oh yeah, it is, man. It's super cool. I think I want to buy it. Yeah, you totally should. You should. I think I might play it at my show tonight. Okay, man, that's great. And he totally did. And he played it at the show later.
That's an easy sell. You're just like, you can, and you totally should buy this. Yeah.
You're fucking Arlo Guthrie, bro.
You can do that.
You can do that.
Your dad's, you can do all that. And his mustache was just uncomfortably hanging over his mouth. And it was just great. That place changed my life though. Cause I then became completely engulfed and saturated with bluegrass and old timey music. And, people would play there, like Doc Watson and Richard Thompson and like all these incredible people would, I would like walking down the hallway and I'd hear this just treacherous noise coming from a warm-up room, and it was Joan Baez. All these just crazy things happened to me there, and that kind of threw me into what I would call Americana music, because I came from Michael Jackson to early hip hop to country music into punk rock, and now here we are with folk music, and now that became like Americana to me, right? So then I started a band in Chicago called Haywood Yards, and we put out a couple records, and I think we were just a little bit ahead of our time, and I'm not bragging again. I'm not bragging. I sent our record to a guy named Garth Fundis, who discovered Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwood and all these huge names. He was a friend of my father's. And he goes, I really like the sound, Mike, but I just don't get it. And this was probably 2004 or 5. And I think around 2006 or 7, Mumford & Son hit. And that was exactly our sound.
Same thing.
Really?
Yep. We had a banjo player from India who grew up playing the sitar. And his fingers were about 3 feet long. And he would just play the banjo like it was nothing. Wow. And then you add rock music behind it and fiddle in front of that.
Yeah.
And it became this sound that it was like rock music with a banjo.
Yeah. And which for a few years after that was all you could find.
It was huge.
That's everything.
It was everywhere.
And in 2000, and like I guarantee if I would have sent it to him a year later, he would have been like,
all
this
over
is
it.
hot. This is hot.
I think that thing of like, I just don't get it. Like that's, I think one of the worst things you could probably hear as like an artist from somebody you're presenting to is like, I don't know. It's, I just don't get it.
Yeah. It's like, well, yeah. What do you want to get out of it?
Right. Yeah. Kind
of. I'm sorry. It's not like everything else.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Get into a bathrobe, put your slippers on, lay on a bed, and then undo the robe and then roll out of bed and dance around to it.
There you go. Then you'll get it.
And then maybe you'll get it.
Right.
Like what are you supposed to say?
Well, to me, that
Steve, you're totally right.
Harkens back to the Elvis Presley story when he's auditioning. I think it's for the Grand Ole Opry, and they told him to go back to driving a truck.
Oh, sure. Yeah, exactly.
Same
the hell
kind of
is this?
moment, like, oh
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Super weird, man.
Mm.
Yeah, it's just and all these strange moments in time, and just I feel like that's kind of what you need to do. You got to be at the right place at the right time, and sometimes you just kind of miss that rotating door a little bit, and that I chalked it up to that.
sure.
We're sitting on a double album that we never released with that band, and
Really?
I still think to this day it's one of the greatest things I've ever done.
You have and you have all of it recorded. It's all
done. It's all done. It's ready to come out. The only reason we didn't release it was because my banjo player had he married a girl, and she got a job in the Middle East, and he moved to the Middle East, and they've been in Qatar ever since probably I think 2012, something like that. But yeah, he moved to Qatar, and we just kind of disbanded, and I moved to Lincoln. I moved back home.
Was that you moved back to Nebraska not long after that?
Right. Yeah. Right around that same time. Yeah.
And I remember, and I just want to like toot your hooter for a second. That you're one of those folks that like you came back to Chicago, you had a family already, but you didn't.
Oh, to Nebraska. Yeah.
Yeah. Nebraska. Back to Nebraska. You came back to Nebraska and you were like, you didn't slow down at all.
Well, like because the reason being is because I felt like I missed out on 10 years of not being able to create in a place that was nurturing. And that's Chicago, totally true. That's totally
Chicago
true.
Didn't feel nurturing to you.
No, never. And I will full-heartedly say that the reason scenes don't take off in Chicago more than they do is because bands do not work together. They compete. And it's a travesty. It's an absolute shame,
right?
Because we would play a great show with people and make friends with them that night, and we would be like, dude, this was great. Let's get like 3 more bands next week or 2 weeks from now and do it again. Let's build on this and use each other's fan base. And they all looked at me like I was an alien. And I don't know if it was the Nebraska nice in me or what.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
But I mean, like,
it wasn't that we sucked. Our band didn't suck.
But like, when I've kind of got an obsession with the early 90s Seattle scene, and I've watched a few documentaries and I've just paid attention to that.
But name 5 of those bands.
Right. Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, Pearl Jam, Nirvana, Mudhoney, all of those bands were all
they knew
each other, and they supported each other, and they were in each other's bands. And
that's right.
Or in Athens, Georgia, or in any of those, San Francisco in the 60s. It was all like, there was a scene because they supported each other. That
you're right.
It's kind of a bummer that's that way.
But that's how the scene starts.
Yeah.
And when I moved back home to Nebraska, I instantly started seeing people that I knew again. I ran into Gerardo Meza from the Mescal Brothers.
Yeah.
He's like, hey man,
amazing.
You back in town? Killer. I ran into Gunter Volker from Jack Hotel. Hey, oh sweet man, you're back here? You live here? I ran into multiple other like people from Head of Femur that had moved to Chicago that moved back.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh, you're back in Nebraska too? Killer. We should do something. And then finally Gerardo turned to me one night and he said, dude, you should just start a record label. And I was like, brilliant idea. Because that's a guaranteed way to bring people together.
Right. Exactly.
Like like you could have, like we started doing festivals called Sower Fest, SOWER. And it was Sower Records started. And it was a community of musicians that came together and said, we're going to do this together. And it turned into this incredible old timey Americana scene and folk rock and all kinds of great stuff.
Yeah. And what a supportive community. And this, like, I mean, the other thing about a scene and what I witnessed with you all is that, you got people come to the show, people go like right now, obviously, unfortunately, which, but like, you these people, like, I know you. It's like, yes, let's go see Mike's band. Let's go see Mike Perry's band. Like, and that's
outside of the scene, outside of the scene that we're talking about, the community here supports it.
Right.
And they embrace it and they want to see you succeed. Right. And that is so much different than Chicago.
Right.
Like people,
because you think of those places, and I tell my students this, you think of these places where you're like, there's like when I lived in LA, we'd drive. I mean, I lived a stone's throw from the Disney lot, from the, what other lot? Warner Brothers lot was right over there in Burbank. I mean, but it's like you drive by these places, it's like, yeah, the movie studios are right there, but you couldn't be further away from them.
Yes, right.
It's like there's no access to that. You don't just go there. You can't just do that, you know?
It's like a military base,
right. But being in a community that supports it, even if it's not some big city, that's way more valuable.
Oh, tons. You know? Yeah. When I moved back here, I couldn't believe how easy it was. And to answer your question, that's why I hit the ground running quick, because I knew that I felt for 5 of the 10 years I was in Chicago that I just kind of wasted it. I mean, I was just I mean, I don't get me wrong, I had wonderful experiences in Chicago, but artistically, I felt like, man, I need to make up so much time. And I still feel that way. And I think the urgency in me has always been that way. To be just to be like, you know, life is so awesome when you just do. And you know, and sometimes I think I overdo it because I do a lot of stupid shit, you know. And
well, like your Saturday morning
oh yeah, exactly.
Your filter. Oh, Steve, you don't know about this, do you?
Yeah, now my ears are perking up.
Every Saturday morning,
but like, what is this?
Mike gets his phone out and gets on Snapchat and uses these filters and creates these characters.
Oh,
drives his wife insane.
Oh,
poor Carrie. We love you, Carrie.
Oh, she's tormented. I feel so bad about it.
But everybody,
they love it though. Mike. They love it.
just for his. I mean, yeah. So,
but it's
never stop doing that.
It's an addiction though, man. Because you know, I started that as a fluke. I did like 5 of them.
Yeah.
And I did like Cooking with Carol.
Yeah.
I did I Miss You, Harold. And I had like a few really solid characters.
Yeah.
And then finally people on my threads were like, oh my God, these are just like the greatest thing. They're making me so happy during the pandemic.
They really
were. And I'm like, fuck, I can't stop this.
I told you this. I was like,
why would you stop it?
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, just to save my soul, like to not, I mean,
it's just sucking a little. You like have to spend a little bit of your soul every time. It's like you have to put a coin of your soul in the slot.
No, I mean it's not terrible.
But you're making people happy.
Yeah. Trust me, guys. I love it. I really do. But when I wake up Saturday morning after a full week's of work, and I'm like, oh man, I gotta do this. I forgot. And that mindset of like jumping in, almost being frightened by them being shitty, totally makes them better.
Yes.
It totally. I mean, and that just, it's like it's like the dragon that just keeps getting longer and longer and longer.
Well,
and then politically, you've got all these crazy bozos in our town that own bowling alleys and refuse to wear masks. And
oh my gosh.
So there's a character I created. He owns a bowling alley and he has these events. Last week's event was a kissing contest with peanut butter. And he's like, come on down to the bowling alley. We're going to have a kissing contest with peanut butter. It starts at 7:00. The winner gets $50. And don't wear your mask. That's stupid. Get over it. You know, and it's just like these crazy characters just erupt out of pure ignorance in our lives right now.
Well, you get away. I mean, and like to dissect it, you get away with saying all kinds of shit because you
totally
have created these zany characters, you know?
Yeah.
It's just like, and they are literally, and I told you this, they are my adult Saturday morning cartoons. They literally are. I like have my coffee. I'm in my jammies. Like Mike did some more cartoon, you know? It's just
man, I have so much fun doing them. And I just love that people love them. I love that you love them.
Dude, they're great.
And you know, it has become an obsession. I literally watch throughout my week. I pick up on people's like doings throughout the week. And I go, oh, that's totally going to become a character. You know, like during the Trump campaign, like
there's a lot of material out there.
Oh
there is.
Man, I just read the local newspaper thread, and I'm like, that guy's getting it. There's that lady's, she's totally a character.
That's
like
awesome.
There's a character named Karen, and she's of course she's like
she is a Karen.
She's a straight up mom that's always scared, and she's always just like, I don't know what's happening to my husband. like she's just so worried about like his obsession with Trump and his buddies drinking hot damn and all this like and it's just hilarious,
so
man.
fun.
But it's just, it's something that keeps it light. I like to keep it light.
I think we'd be remiss if we didn't talk about Sower Records and talk about where in the hell did you get the nuts to invite Willie Nelson and Neil Young?
Sure.
I got to know a little bit about that before we end.
Yeah, I know we're kind of over time, but I'll make it quick. So the Keystone XL pipeline, which many people know, is a very ugly pipeline that Canada, a company in Canada, TransCanada is trying to place through the dirt in America and run a product through America down south overseas to profit somebody else and not America. So it's a very
risk
ugly,
our water supply.
Yes, and it runs straight over the Ogallala Aquifer, which many people know is our one of the very biggest fresh bodies of water that feed our crops and cattle in Nebraska and throughout the Midwest, and numerous millions of people. Yeah. And so what they're shipping is not gasoline. It's a crude oil full of what's called bitumen that sinks to the bottom of the earth and bottom of water, and it's near impossible to clean up. So it would devastate the aquifer. Yeah. It would ruin it for sure, and at the expense of another country profiting. So during this whole debacle, when it first started, I was lucky enough to start a marketing company. And my partner had been working with a company called Bold, Nebraska. They were an organization, and they were fighting the pipeline. And we started doing some videos for them and working on some media items for them. And long story short, we ended up building a barn that powered by solar energy in the middle of the track, the middle of the proposed pipeline route.
That was so awesome.
So amazing.
Yeah. So we built the barn with like 100 plus other people. We all did it in like, God, it felt like just a few days. And my company filmed it. We filmed a time lapse, and we also helped build it. And then, we kind of did the production of that project, and we outfitted the building with solar panels. And then as we're driving away, I said, well, we can't just have a barn sit there. That's awesome. It's kick ass, but why not? It's powered. There's power. Let's make a record in it.
Yeah.
And so we made a record in it with 10 bands, many of which that were on my label and a few others. And we made an album completely powered by the sun. And then I said, well, we can't just make a record. We got to have a release party, and we should have goddamn Neil Young play the release party.
Of course. And
many people thought I was crazy. And so we started talking to Bold, Nebraska about the idea, and Bold got excited. Then they reached out to a guy named Art Tandrup, and Art Tandrup went to Washington and marched with all these like incredible, like Sting and all these movie stars. And on the bus, Art Tandrup met Neil Young and said, we're doing this thing back home. You should come play. And it snowballed from there into, well, let's just ask him. At first he said no, because he didn't quite understand what was happening. And then he realized that the barn was there and the path was there, and these people are fighting tooth and nail to save their land and their water. And finally he said, well, I'll do it, and I'll bring my friend Willie. And so he brought Willie Nelson, and then Willie said, well, I'll do it, and I'll bring my son, Lucas. So Lucas came, and then all of the natives got together. We got the natives involved, and the Ponca tribe was there, and numerous others. And there was some incredible performers from the native tribes that got up and performed. And we all got to be on the press conference, and I was sitting in between Willie and Neil, and it was just the craziest moment of my life. And fast forward 2 hours from that, I was singing "This Land Is Your Land" with Willie and Neil on the same stage. And like, I grew up listening to both of them. Yeah. And they're like the ultimate icons. They were almost unreal. Yeah. And I'll never forget, before the show, they were adorning Willie and Neil with these buffalo hides, and it was hot. It was like 90 degrees out. It was hot. And here they are putting buffalo hides on, and Willie's like 70, 77 at that point or whatever. He's older fella. He was totally taking it like a champ. He was just like sitting there, and Neil Young was sitting there, and they're burning sage, and all this, the chants are happening, and these tribal music drums are happening. And Neil Young looks past a few folks standing in front of him, and he locks eyes with me. And it was the craziest, I swear to God. And I tell this story a lot. I don't understand. It probably lasted for 5 minutes. Like he locked and stared at me through this tribal dance that was happening. And I wasn't about ready to like lose a staring match with Neil Young.
No,
you just don't do that.
No.
You just don't look away.
Yeah. And
he just stared at me, and it was the most empowered moment of my life. Like, wow.
I believe that.
Yes. And I, almost so much that I got a tattoo on my arm of his eyeball, in a buffalo that, reflects that day. And 10 minutes later, I went on and got on stage and performed. And it was the most powerful thing ever to happen to me. It was crazy.
Amazing. I'm so glad you got to tell that story, because I think I've heard a truncated version of that without the staring contest. And
sure.
Holy shit, Mike, that's insane.
And Neil Young is, he's magical. He's a total ass. He's a total soothsayer. Like he's a shaman. He's all of those things.
Yeah. Right.
And,
agreed.
And Willie too. When I met him, he was super nice to me, and he had a very spiritual frame of mind about him. Like he was just very, I don't know how else to explain it. It was a spiritual experience.
Well, it just kills me. You got to sing like one of the most American songs.
Yeah.
With American legends.
Right.
Doing
trying to save America.
Save America.
Trying to save America. Right. I mean,
right.
That's quite the confluence of things happening right there.
Yeah.
And I think to tie this all together, Mike, is that from the 4-year-old dancing and singing on the porch to, well, yeah, let's build a barn. And if we build a barn, let's power it. And if we power it, we might as well make a record. And if we're going to make a record, we might as well throw a party. If we're going to throw a party, we might as well have Neil Young here. It's just like the thing that it's inspiring about you is you're just like, well, yeah, let's just do that. Let's just do it.
Yeah.
Like, there's no cowering in fear like I like to do. It's just like, just do it. You know what I mean? Like, we could all take a little bit of Mike Semrad with us. Just,
I hope so.
You know what I mean? Like, we're all gonna die. Just do it.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to ask, like, if you had any advice to somebody that's kind of wallflowering off the side and feels like they maybe have a creative thing, but they're not sure. And like, what would you tell that person?
I would tell them to go to Gateway Mall and just start doing it.
Right.
And because Gateway Mall or any mall or any group of people is, I always say attack the fear, because like, if you're afraid that somebody's going to hate it, then make somebody hate it. Like
I love that.
You know what I'm saying?
Do it with enough oomph that somebody will hate it.
Yeah, because how enjoyable would it be to be like, dude, your music sucks, and then you'd be like, I know, I totally made you hate it. I totally made it suck, didn't I? And then you realize that, hey, you can actually make that person feel something, and then go home and work on making some people feel something different. If you don't want to be a band that sucks, then don't be a band that sucks. Like that sounds cliche, but it's like, well, do what feels good to you. How it's going to make, I don't know how it's going to make people feel. Like, that's a powerful thing, to make other people feel stuff, and fear is a dangerous thing, man. It's like that dragon that just keeps getting bigger and bigger. You got to watch out for that, and it sucks. And I'm not saying I'm not afraid of anything. I'm totally afraid. I'm afraid of all kinds of crazy stuff, but it takes the buckle down. You got to just do it. Just do it. If it makes you feel good, then do it.
I love that.
That's amazing. Sure.
Thanks.
Well, thank you so much. I've been excited to meet you and have this conversation, and I certainly appreciate you taking the time to talk with us.
Yeah,
this is awesome. I don't really get to do this, because I typically run streams, and I'm fascinated by other people, and I'm so honored that you guys would want to have me on. I really am. Dude, thank you so much.
Yeah, it's really an honor, Mike. You're doing a lot of amazing things. You're a staple of the local music community. You're just an inspiring dude, and I can't wait to go to a Bottle Top show and watch Carrie suck back some PBR and just get wild. So
she loves the PBRs, man. Yeah, and the kiddos are playing music and singing. They're coming up. It's gonna be
awesome.
It's gonna be a family show before you know it. So
can't wait.
Love it.
Love it. Thank you so much, Mike.
Thanks, Mike.